Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Watercolor Impressions. This week we will be diving into painting an urban busy street. Our inspiration comes from a beautiful spot near Bloor and Ossington intersection in Toronto. Let's work together to capture the essence of this busy street. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button before you go so you can stay tuned for weekly updates from my channel. And let's get started, guys. Every painting I start in watercolors, it starts with a light sketch, and I want to go through the reference because this is intersection, which is Bloor and Ossington, and it is really hard to capture the both side of the street. You can see the reference. There's the left hand side and the right hand side, and I put it together and I try to create a composition in such a way that it tells a story. If you would have painted just the intersection on just the right, and if I'm leaning on the left, it doesn't make sense. So I took these two references and I combined it together. So this is also really important for an artist or any kind of artist to tell a story and creating your own composition. And we are not doing it exactly what's in the reference. Try to change everything in your reference and try to express something of your own. That way it also helps you to build up your reference image library as well. So next time when you paint something, you can paint from your imaginary resource. And you can see I'm trying to add those people. So every urban busy street I do, or any kind of urban cityscapes I do, I try to add people in my painting because it shows the scale of it. It shows how big is it. And I also added one more thing near the CIBC building, is like adding the like a bus, a TTC bus, and it is like quite nothing that shows Toronto is the TTC bus, and they do have quite a lot of colors in it. So once I'm happy with the drawing, now I'm going with the first wash. The first wash, it's always the biggest shape in your painting, so that would be the sky. So if you see, the most of the spaces are covered by the sky, so I'm trying to paint as fast as I can, and I'm not trying to worry about the sky that much. It is really important to paint a sky with a rush, because so you don't get obsessed with the details and everything in it. And now I'm trying to combine that sky at the bottom of the background so that we can finish the background in a really quick and faster way. So whenever I paint background, I keep in my mind that not to put any details in it. So it is just something, as a backdrop, and it doesn't gonna serve my painting. So the details which you're going to be adding is like most of the details in the foreground, because that creates a depth. So you add more details in the foreground. As it recedes in the background, you add lesser and lesser details. And if you see any kind of classical paintings, and that's how they did it, in a way they create a depth. And if you see this painting from far, the background doesn't serve any purpose of the details than the foreground. So I'm doing the first wash for the background building, and I'm combining with the building, that's the TTC subway. And the one major thing I want to capture in the TTC subway is that sign, which is in the bright red color. Because everywhere if you go in Toronto, the TTC sign is really quite essential. So I want to make sure that I capture it. And it also shows that it's Ossington Station. And I also take that bus quite a while to go to work on Monday morning. So now I'm doing the building which is on the left hand side, and you can see the first wash, try not to get obsessed with the value. Try to put the colors which is close to it. Even though the colors on the reference, it looks a little bit dull, I made a little bit warmer to create that warmth in my scene. And I'm adding the road, and been painting a lot of cityscapes, and I also noticed that even though the road looks a little bit dull, and I went with the value a little bit darker. So in watercolors, as you paint more, you get to realize that the colors and the values get duller. Sometimes you have to glaze over it to get the exact value. And I was scared as soon as I put that darker color on the road. I was a little bit scared. But at the end, it ended up worked pretty good because it became dull as it dried out. So now I'm focusing the bus, And you can see if I would have painted the reference on the top of it and I left it as it is, it doesn't have any interesting element and it's not telling a story of a busy street. As soon as there's a bus, it's a warm weather in a summer day and there's a lot of people going to work and they're going for lunch and people walking in the street and somebody cycling and enjoying the weather as well. So I tried to do a lot of wet on wet for the first washes, and I'm also going a little bit darker on the bus because I want to paint it as it is. I tried to start with light to darker because that's how watercolor works, and that way you can manage the values a little bit easier. And I also tried to do painting whatever value it is, and it didn't work quite well because of the fluidity of the watercolors, because it goes a little bit dull as you paint. And I'm painting the car, and you could see it. Even though it looks darker, it will get lighter, as you could see. In a matter of minutes, and we try to able to block in the first wash. And I'm also trying to, since I add the car there, I also want to connect that car with the shadow of the bus as well, so we don't have to go back at it. So now I'm adding the faces for the figure. So when you try to add figures, try to block as one single shape for the legs, for the faces, or anything else. Don't try to fiddle with it. Don't try to put a lot of details in it. This painting is done on a 9x12, so we don't need that much details or give enough information on it. If you are painting like more than 22 by 30 inches, where you can put a little bit of details on it. So only thing you have to capture on the face is the lighting and the shadow, and that's it. So this foreground building, since it's in the foreground, I also want to keep it till the end, and I also make sure that I want to add more details on it as well, just to make sure. And you could see, and there's also a little bit of a color variation here and there. There's like a few lighter and darker patches, and since we did the first wash, and since it's a little bit damp and wet, and I tried to add a darker color on top of it to create that a little bit of texture variation on the building. So now I'm adding the signs for the Alibaba, and this is a shawarma place, and which exists all over Toronto. It's a quite nice restaurant to have a shawarma. And I'm also not trying to get capture as it is, and I'm trying to paint the impressions of the sign than anything else. And if you give more information on your painting, and people don't tend to put their details on your painting. If you give less details, and they try to go and fill in the details by themselves. And you could see this technique I use a lot. So I wet the paper using the base color of the reference, and before it dries out, I add the darker color on it. So that way it gives the wet on wet look, and it also gives that shadow happening underneath that Alibaba sign. And I'm also trying to add the windows on the foreground building. Before, when I added the windows, I don't put a lot of details or attentions on it, but nowadays I did spend time on doing the details, because I want to make sure that if you don't capture the windows properly, it doesn't show the scale pretty well, and it doesn't show the building as it is. So that's why I did the first wash on the windows, and I jumped onto the CIBC building. And now I'm going to be adding the little bit of a darker patterns. So as soon as you start adding a little bit of darks, the whole painting come alive. And you can see there's a top a darker value at the top. I'm adding that as well. And I'm going to be combining with the shadows on the top. And there's also a white bit there. And now I'm adding the shadows, as you could see. And this one thing which is really painful to do in watercolors is just go around the lighter colors in the washes. But as soon as we did that shadow, and you could see things started popping up in our scene. The lighting and shadow started appearing, and it also bring back some of the things forward and some of the things backward. And now I'm adding the shadows at the Ossington station at the back. So it's the same thing. I added a darker value at the top, and at the bottom where the shadow is going in, I'm adding it. But even though shadows look a little bit darker, because whenever you take a picture, it gives a little bit of a darker value in your reference. So I'm trying to make it a little bit lighter of a shadow in the Ossington station, because that's how reality works. And we can also create, by varying the values of shadows from the foreground to the background, that helps to create depth as well. And whenever you paint this, the shadows on buildings, think of as like a one single shape. So the one single shape for the CIBC building in the front, it would be a cube, and there's a light side and there's a shadow side. It's the exact same thing on the Ossington station at the back as well. So since it's a little bit of damp, I'm adding the other value, and there's also windows you could see there, and I'm also adding that as well. But if you see the reference, there's a lot of blue spills, in the shadow, but I want to create a warmer shadow. You can also glaze over a blue spill on top of it, and that will give the exact value what we see in the reference. So now I'm adding the shadow side for the background building as well. And you can see as soon as we add the shadow on the background building, the shadow started appearing as well. And I'm trying to do it in a quick, confident way in the background because I don't want to spend more to connect the shape, and I'm trying to add like a little bit of details here and there. I don't want the... So now I'm trying to finish the details on the windows before cake is really important than the icing, because your ingredients and everything have to be perfect than the icing. And now I'm adding them. See, I glazed over with a warmer tone with a lighter value. Before it dries out, I added the darker value, which is on the shadows. Sure that it captures the essence of the reference as close as possible. And it's also really necessary to use a pointy brush and a really hard brush, so you can get a crisp edges on your windows. And if you see the reference, or if you go out tomorrow or today after watching this video, go and check the windows on the buildings. You'll be surprised how many details and how many values exist in the windows. It was surprising because my earlier work, when I did my windows, I didn't put that much precise work in it, but nowadays I'm trying to add a little bit of details in it to make sure that get the precision and add a little bit of realism in my work. So now I'm adding the shadows, and it dulled quite a bit, and it's the same thing. I use a base wash, and before it dries out I use a darker pigment on it, so that it captures the lighting as well as the secondary and the tertiary value on top of it. Let's focus on the foreground building now. I added that little bit of details at the top. Now I'm adding the details. As I said earlier, I'm trying to add as much as details on the windows in the foreground, because this painting, if the viewers see it, this is the first thing they're gonna notice, the foreground, and it takes us into the painting as well. And before earlier we added the first wash. Now I'm adding the second wash for it, and I'm also not being exactly true to the reference. And you can also see there's also a complicated window on the upright plane, which is facing us. And if you see the reference, the window looked totally different, but I changed the windows to the one which is on the left hand side facing the other side of the building. So now I'm adding a little bit of the shadows at the bottom as well. It dried quite a bit, so I'm glazing over it, and before it dries out, I'm going to add a darker value on top of it, and that also creates a depth, light, and painting in our painting as well. So that's the entrance, and it's going to be really dark because and there's also the window which is facing the other side. And you can see as soon as we try to adding those planes, everything coming alive, the lighting started appearing on the foreground building as well. So now I'm adding the shadows for the figure. For the shadows, I try to not to add a lot of values for the figures. I just have the lighting and the shadow. but I also make sure that I do add a little bit of details of the foreground people as well. And you could see it, but they looked brighter in the reference, but I made a little bit duller. And I also added this cyclist from the reference. From other reference, I just added them in because that space looked really empty. And this is another thing which comes by painting a lot, by intuition, and you tend to know where we can put details, where we shouldn't. I wish it can be taught, and I think everybody should learn it as they paint. And you could see, and as soon as I add the figure, the painting started coming, gives that urban busy street look in our painting. So now I'm adding the lighter and the darker tones for the people as well. So I'm adding the hair, and there's a darker hair, and I'm also adding the details for the girl in the front. And every painting I do, I have this thing called the major figure or the hero figure. I spend more time on it. I'd give a lot of contrast on that figure than anything else. And that figure is the figure with the white shirt with the dog. And now I'm adding the cyclist. I want to create a lot of contrast on the cyclist, and you can see as soon as we added this cyclist, the foreground and the CIBC building, the perspective and the depth started happening alive. And before, whenever I paint a cycle, I get frustrated because it's really hard to get a circle with a really loose stroke. I want to make sure that I can capture that essence. Next time when you paint, if you want to see what are the details need to be added from your reference, is just squint your eyes and it will give the exact thing which can be added in your painting. And it goes for anything, like even the first wash, the second wash, as well as the tertiary and the secondary details. So now I'm adding the darker tone for the bus, and because the front plane of the bus on facing the light, whereas the other side is facing the shadow, so it will have a darker value than the front plane, than the side plane. So now I'm going to add the shadows, and I keep the shadows till the end of it until I have anything else. And you could see, as soon as we add the shadows, everybody is like anchored on the ground properly. And shadow also anchors a lot of people. And I also added two pigeons in the middle of the street because I was painting and I dabbed black paint on the road. So it's kind of like a happy instant. So I kind of added that pigeon in the foreground as well, and it also added a little bit of urban busy vibe. So now I'm adding the wires, and I'm also making sure to do it like in a one single stroke instead of fiddling with it. If you try to fiddle with it, it doesn't look good because you have to do it in a really fast and confident way. I'll wait for the eyelets till the end using white paint, using gouache or Chinese white, just to bring back the eyelets. So this is how the painting looks like at the end. I always tape my painting just to see how my painting looks like when it's framed. Now it's your turn. Take my template and reference from my website. You can download from it. It's in the description. Or else you can use your own reference and use the techniques I showed you today. Thanks again for watching this urban busy street painting tutorial. Please feel free to share your thoughts on the video in the comment section below. If you have any other topics related to watercolors that you would like me to cover, please reach out to me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or leave a comment on below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for weekly uploads, and share with your fellow artists, friends and family. And good luck with your painting, folks.